Hey, what's up guys? As you can see, hung up some photos. Makes this better to look at. Um, Anyways, today's video we're going to be doing like some really simple editing. You can do this with any camera. Today we're going over actual big guy camera. Not your iPhone camera. So I'm going to be using my Fujifilm. Here's some settings you might want to switch to before going any farther. If you're using Fujifilm, use the Provia and go ahead and take off all your excess settings. So it should be 0 on everything. Very normal, like straight out of the box. If you're using Canon, go ahead and swap it to neutral. If you're using Nikon, I think it's neutral. Yeah, we'll go with it. Use neutral. And then if you're using Sony, I think it's neutral. Your colors won't come out the same anyways, but use neutral. The reason I say you go ahead and use neutral, today we're going to be editing with VSCO, so that way you can overlay and you get the most out of it. Just shoot JPEG on this. I normally shoot JPEG and RAW, so I have RAW files to work with afterwards in case there's a photo I really like, but today's for learning purposes. And yeah, it's a really easy way to find your own style as well, so that way you can dial that sucker in and start busting out all them IG bangers, dog. I'm gonna shut up. I'm gonna run my errands and take some photos along the way. Here we go. Alright guys, so we're back in the office, got our photos. Let's go ahead and get into VSCO and I can show you what you can do. But VSCO obviously is a very powerful program. Like, it can do a lot of things, but I like how easy it breaks things down for people to find their style and what they like, as opposed to just jumping straight into Lightroom where you create everything. So it's always good to find your style before just diving in and figuring out every little thing. This just makes it that much easier, just by a little bit, so that way you have like a good starting point. You know what colors you end up liking in your photos, and then when you're ready to make that jump from VSCO to Lightroom, it's just that much easier. So we're gonna come in here, find an image we want to edit. Came across a cool vintage car that was just sitting in the parking lot. So we'll go here. I've purchased quite a few of these packs before they just changed it altogether into now you have to subscribe to get a lot of things. The subscription service is not that crazy, but I already pay for Lightroom, so I'm not going to pay for this. I have all the presets that I like and want, but if this is your sole editor, then heck yeah, go for it. It doesn't unlock like a ton of stuff, but it does unlock like borders and HSL, which HSL would be the more critical thing to go ahead and buy. But I mean, they give you everything from exposure. So like, say if I thought this was a little dark, I could brighten this all together up, maybe by one stop, bump it a little bit of contrast, you know, you can even sharpen it if I wanted to. I took negative sharpening, negative -4 in the Fuji, so that's why I went ahead and added sharpening in here. You can add clarity. Clarity is kind of cool, but you can definitely abuse the crap out of it. Like, that looks terrible. So I only bump clarity up 1. Back in the day, I used to abuse the living tar out of it. But before you get too far into like colors and stuff like that, like I'm gonna go ahead and reset contrast, reset exposure, sharpening, and clarity. I'm probably gonna leave the same anyways. But I always say, like, start with a good base that you like. So scrolling through these, like, I like how they have the little tab to where you can preview which one you really like before clicking on it and being like, oh, that's not what I want. So like, you can kind of look through these. I have some favorites already picked out. These are my kind of go-tos. I love the ACG one from Nike. I I am a Nike fan, but I just like how vintagey the colors look in this. Very film-esque, as opposed to like that straight out of camera flat digital look. So this does end up with a lot more filmy vibe to it. A6, also another clean favorite. I think if I remember correctly, the A series comes with it, but the WF or WWF, not the wrestling one, just adds a little bit of flattening to the image, but also boosts a lot of color. So if you are very desaturated, you can pop that color back in. If you like a desaturated look, SE3, killer. There's a ton of black and whites, but I love the color on this car, so I want that to kind of shine. So we'll go ahead and throw the WWF on there. Still gonna brighten it a little bit, punch in a little more contrast. So contrast also enhances a lot of color. A lot of people, for some reason, don't know that, but yes, when you increase contrast, your color will become a little more saturated. For some reason, I don't know why that is, but it is. I think it's saturated enough, but you can totally, yeah, don't abuse that either. That looks terrible. So I think the white balance was fine. It nailed it. Skin tone shifts around the oranges, so you can make them a little more yellow or a little more magenta. I think they were fine the way they were. You can add some vignetting if you want to really like hone in the viewer's attention. This doesn't get like abusively strong like Lightroom can, so I mean you could go pretty hard on this. We'll just add in a little bit just for the heck of it. I like grain in my photos. Sorry for all the sniffles. I'm allergic to the cat we own, and so yeah, I can never get away. It's not the virus, I promise. So we'll settle around 4.1 grain, looks good. We can add in a little bit of fade. I don't like a ton of it, but I notice it kind of brightened up the whole image, so I'll go back to exposure, probably just punch that down to 0 and leave it. You can go to tone and really reserve the highlights. It's kind of like bringing it back down. The shadows you can bring up. Keep in mind, like, a good photo is a good photo. A bad photo is really hard to save. Mainly because just a bad photo, edited or not edited, probably still a bad photo. But a bad edit is different, so you can always fix those. Alright, and I think that's about it. Pretty good little before, after. It's a lot more punchy now. I'm just gonna save the draft. Let's go ahead and throw one more in here just for the heck of it. Let's say you have a person in the photo. This guy was wearing some sick pants. Jealous, dude. Wherever you got those are phenomenal. A6 looks great, and that's the nice thing about VSCO. You can just tap and you're like, oh, I kind of just like that straight. Wow, that's a little too saturated for me. But A6, killer for me. Looks like a nice summery day, which it kind of feels like here in Florida. Sorry if you live anywhere else and it's snowy. We're just gonna straighten that up a little bit. Yeah, here in Florida, it's like 73 right now. It feels amazing outside. So here we go. Actually, I'm gonna leave the exposure, maybe pump in a little more contrast, not too crazy. If you notice, I don't really go real crazy. I let the preset do its thing. Because you're shooting in a completely normal profile, which these are kind of designed for, you'll notice that VSCO filters work better with just a straight up not touched JPEG. They do take RAW, but I find like RAW for some reason in the program doesn't do very good. I don't know why. that clarity gets out of control real quick. I need to take it lower than that. But yeah, RAWs don't work. So if you're just using VSCO, and most of the time, let's be honest, if you're just being an Instagram guy, you don't really need to shoot RAW. So let's be real. Just shoot a JPEG and edit it in VSCO. FYI, this is not sponsored. But hey, VSCO, if you ever come across this, feel free. That would be super cool. Be very cool, actually. I'm gonna go back and I'm actually gonna drop this exposure a little bit. And then we're gonna, yeah, that looks better, in my opinion. So here you'll probably notice the color shift, especially like if you look at those lines at the bottom and the color on the bus, you can see it shift to yellow and then more magenta. I kind of like it right about there. Again, the white balance I thought was perfectly fine. Grain, I told you I like grain. And then we'll pump in a little bit of fade. And I would call that done. We'll do a little something fun with that one later. So that one is saved. Take this one, go ahead and just copy the edits, drag it over. Let's say you really liked what you did. Boom. Just, that's not what I wanted to do. We'll just slap them onto here. Could use some work. Like the exposure for one. Looks pretty film-like to me. We'll go ahead and save that. And just so you could like spice these up so that way it just doesn't look like you just threw everything into VSCO and edited it and posted it. Nothing wrong with that. But in my opinion, you always want to add your own flair, add your own touch to things. So we're gonna go over, stop looking at all my apps. We're gonna step into a thing called Nebifilm. This one's one of my favorite apps, just because it adds that little personal, like, vintagey touch to it. So we'll start with the guy. They give you a lot of presets, but you can also buy more. These are not really presets, these are overlays. So they add that grit, those scratches that you would normally see in older films. But they do it really well, and you can adjust the intensity, as you can see right here. Like, we'll tap through a few of these. And you can really dramatize it, make it dramatic, dramatize that. Or you can really bring it in very subtle. Like, that kind of looks pretty dope. Some of these you could kind of play with, like, just to balance that one out, you could throw in like a film burn onto the other side. The cool thing is you can flip them, rotate them, so nobody really could catch on to how much you actually abuse this. I do it quite a bit, gonna be honest, but it's cool, man. You can play with a lot of these. I don't own that one, obviously. I think this one flipped. Punch in a little bit stronger. It's kind of a nice little balance, in my opinion. Now you got red on both sides. You could even just crop in that one side. And let's go ahead and do the other one so you can see a few more examples. And also, here's another reason why to add in the grain in VSCO. It helps sell these filters because the grain on these can sometimes be really aggressive once you bring them up. And if your photo doesn't already have grain in it, it doesn't balance well. It definitely comes across as an overlay. So, like this, like you can bring that down. Or if you really exaggerated it, it's gritty, but we didn't make the initial photo gritty enough for this kind of overlay. Like, it looks good right about there, That doesn't look bad. But if we scroll to the end, like there's like these. I think these are really dope. You could really blast these on there. And that doesn't look bad. That looks gritty enough and vintagey. You can even do like a green screen. Great, what? You can even do like a greenish scan over. Like it kind of makes it very old school, like the scan came in wrong. There's a lot of cool things with this one. So yeah, we'll go. I don't know if I'm sold on that one. Yeah, there's tons of stuff. That's a little much. Sure, we'll go with that. Just for the sake of ending the video. And bada boom. So now you have something else you can kind of play around with. I hope you found this useful. If not, sorry I wasted your time during quarantine. It's not like there was a lot of else that you could have done, so you're welcome for helping kill some of your day. Yeah. I do have a couple videos lined up, so looking forward to getting those out and pushing out some more content for you guys. So go ahead and like, subscribe if this was useful to you. Anyways, I'm still rambling. This video should end.